injections. In between 2000 and 2010, we have seen that threat actors are exploiting this. However, this SQL injection is still the vulnerability which has been exploited right now also. And these data breaches are one of the examples where this estimation holds true today. So these two veterans, I must say, from phishing and SQL injections, are still acting into the environment one way or the another. When we go further down in 2010 and further, we have seen that based on the technological development and advancement in the technology. So the threat actors' motive was mostly now not the phishing and the SQL. They want to have persistent into the systems, and they want to have complete ransomware sort of thing where the defenders or the organizations has no clue how to tackle with these sort of attacks. And WannaCry ransomware has taken all globe in one of the uh, cradles, you can say that this is certainly new and impacted globally. The WannaCry in 2017 has shown that you are not being isolated from this global community of internet and cyber world. Further, now post COVID 2021 2020, we have seen that the world has moved from the organizational environment to a home-based working environment. Work from home has become a new normal to all of us, and this exponential line that we are seeing from 2016, it has further steepened up. And we must say that in every global environment or Indian ecosystem, you can see this cyber threat environment has drastically changed from 2021 till now, based on one thing is the invent of the technology and digitizations, and more penetration of the internet across the globe, from cities to the smaller suburbs to the villages. And where the mobile has been an enabler, it has been now considered to be an tool which can also has making havoc in the community of cyber defenders. Cyber crime as a service has come up now, and certainly the 2023 and 24 now, where we have seen a sudden movement of AI ML into the picture. This complete scenario, you can see that there are 10 or years of services where change of technology happened. However, if you see within 2020 to 2025, we have seen two major evolution into the historical development of digitization. And this has impacted similarly the cyber threat environment vis-a-vis. So we may go further and we see that how this AI/ML driven tactics and sophistication has impacted the critical infrastructure in particular and complete economic in general. So as I have told that this rise of AI/ML into last 2 years where it has come into the public. However, all the major economies, organizations are working into this AI/ML development from last 4 to 5 years. And with the development of various stable models and coming of this LLM environment into the picture, it has been seen that now this AML has been weaponized and which has outpaced the traditional defense systems. Since the technology is available to the public in general, so the targeting of this and based on human understanding has drastically increased. Now, this AI/ML is a double sword engine, as you all know. Reason is that it is characterized in such a way that it where you can able to produce good things, you are also able to manipulate into it's the same AI system in a way that you can target those systems as well. Where we require a lot of bots, IoTs, and other to launch a DDoS attack and to search for those vulnerable things onto the environment manually or by collaboration amongst the community. Now, this AI tool has given uh, the attacker or the hacker or the threat actor a capability to look into and produce a system which can automate the complete life cycle of generating a cyber attack within a small span of time, and with simultaneous environment being created, which is very lengthy. Previously, we thought that it requires a lot of insight to provide a malware. We need an understanding of complete ecosystems. If we have to exploit an OS, then we have to go deep down into the systems configurations, their coding, and other part. Now it is very easy for any sort of script kiddie or an attacker or a hacker to simply Google it or not Google it or AI ML engine and then search for the code in a more positive way. Rather than looking for an RDP attack, he may ask that I want a solution which can provide me an ease of understanding and giving me an access to a endpoint system of my organization. Please produce a code for that. Rather than asking for an RDP exploitation, we can write similar codes, or we can look into smaller, simple languages and provide a code to us. So this automation has changed the environment for the attackers and raised the bar for the defenders to protect against these sort of attacks. Adoption, you may bypass these securities now. We have the traditional systems, what we consider right now as a security barriers, are now no more protection enablers. Rather than they've been easily bypassed by knowing or working on this AI ML based solutions, which can be easily available through if you have an internet with you. Scalability, I have already mentioned that with this can be a target. These AI ML systems can have scalability as one of their tool, where we consider AI and ML as an enabler for scalability in terms of providing solutions. Now these set actors has utilized same scalability to target these systems in totality. Cost was a very major impact, because as a defender, as a defense cybersecurity specialist, we understand that attack will happen and they will keep happening day in day out. Only thing is that we produce so many difficulties into the environment that at certain point of time the cost of attack will be very difficult, very high for them if they really want to pass those boundaries. But since these AI/ML based solutions, which can be generated by these attackers, can easily pass on without investing any cost, and just smart internet will help them to provide these solutions. So, in that case, this is very helpful for them to target the systems. Further, one of the complex things that you need to understand the domain. Rather than you being part of a telecom industry, you will part of banking industry, where a core uh, swift sort of environment or network is to be designed or understand. In India, we have our UPI systems which go for online payments through mobiles, and this sort of environment. Earlier, we required a lot of documentation to understand it. Your architecture requires to be validated. We have to go deep down how these systems, specifically in the OT environment, being architected and being deployed. However, with the availability of this AI-based tools into the internet, and you can easily understand the general nuance of that particular domain, and then subsequently increase your capability to target these domain specific systems, and which is going to increase further in the downtime. We can still sense this from the recent threat patterns what we are observing into the cyber ecosystems across the globe. So this is how the complete ecosystem of AI/ML, from a betterment to a threat, has come up into the picture. And this is always there with any technology which has come up into the environment. So what sort of attack can we can see into our environment is few of the examples that has come up into the picture in recent time, where we can see that the AI can be used to, it can be leveraged to identify and exploit vulnerabilities in a supply chain, where it is very difficult, or it is requires a lot of effort from a security researcher point of view, or from a vulnerability exploitation point of view a few days back. Now, with the help of this AI, you can simply understand the architecture, and then supply chain can be manipulated. However, it has been done beforehand also by various threat actors to look into the supply chain and then target it. Like party vendors being targeted by injecting a malicious code and compromise a larger systems rather than being compromised by an endpoint system. The threat actors has targeted the supply chain, so the impact of this compromise will be a huge mass of people. We have also seen that earlier, now the change of technology has moved everyone, most of the organization, even the banking sector, if you can see, the government also, the movement is towards the cloud adoption. And this cloud adoption, based on their efficiency, resource utilization, and utilization of the API, has created a different sort of environment for threat actors to exploit. We can now understand, with the help of this AI ML engines which are available, to find the vulnerabilities and exploit those vulnerabilities in the cloud environment and APIs. This is one of the challenges that has been faced by security people or defenders into the environment, both in the government as well as in the industry also. As I have mentioned, that the veteran phishing is still equally relevant in present day as it was there in 1990s and 2000. It was still persisting. However, the system of defending by ways of various organizations as well as the industry has come up with the solutions to look into this phishing domain sort of thing, phishing domains as well as phishing emails. As solutions available, but they go into detailings of looking into the language part of it, logo part of it, on the stack. One is the aesthetic part of it. So now, with the help of this AIML, it requires a minute to replicate a website of yours in terms of phishing domains with similar hashes, and every component of yours look similar to that. And an email which was difficult for people to have English as a language or your local native language. Now, this AIML tool provides you a complete grab on creating an absolutely error-free email and generating it and throwing it to the stakeholders at any time. And this is very fast. So the challenges lies in identification of these sort of phishing attacks, both in terms of malicious domains as well as in terms of a phishing mail. We have seen in the banking industry, which is prominently leading our economy, is that the deepfake, where the reputations and directions are very much required. So the impersonation of individuals for social engineering and fraud has come up very drastically in last 1.5 years. You say that if you go to any social media platforms, you keep coming the heads of your organizations, the head of the nations, they are giving certain sort of uh, diktat, or they are providing a national level of talk, which will be totally seen as a non-cyber people as very genuine to them, and they get into this trap, specifically in the case of the banking industry, where it has been seen that the heads of the organizations been giving us statements which can impact the complete ecosystem in terms of their stakeholders in shareholdings and movement of the people in the economic environment. So this deepfake has been prominently been exploited in terms of generating a fake image of any person, and being very derogatory sometimes can be put into and tarnish the image of that particular personality. It can be business also, it can in terms of an individual life also. So this we can say. However, if you see the major concern that the complete industry, the globe is battling from last 4 to 5 years in terms of ransomware attack. So it has seen that these ransomware attack has impacted globally, and their movement was always been on the uphill. They've been targeting the health infrastructure, they've been targeting the government entities, in lure of getting the ransom out of it, where the agencies are not that prepared by their weakness into their cybersecurity environment, and they are utilizing. And there is a complete ecosystem as a ransomware as a service has come up in last few years, which has totally impacted the defenders as well as the economic conditions across the globe. However, as part of our various regulations by our regulators like RBI, SEBI, and environment in various critical sector entities, we have always been, as a government policy, clearly mentioned that there will be no ransom for these sort of activities. However, nonetheless, they have gone from the tactics and techniques like double extortion, triple extortions, where they release the data into the public for various sort of image impact that may have certain impact in terms of their stockholders, in terms of their economic activity also. And they are utilizing these ransomware groups are going to utilize this AI as their enhancement of targeting the various threat actors. So there is a potential that these threat actors may further complicate the ransomware ecosystem into our environment. However, as a part of this complete AML, if we see that how the adversarial AML this means that the AIML model that we are relying into having a resolution or some sort of output given from that is now uh, being targeted itself. We will poison the AIML systems. The way we are going to train the data sets into the environment, it can be manipulated so that the AIML engine itself is producing an hallucinated sort of output. Like we human beings, if certain things been put into our mind for a longer period of life, and we've been indoctrinated into certain ways that we will still understand whatever data coming to it is in a way that we are being trained. So same way with AML, the threat actors are now training this AML into their own conditions so that the complete mass will be impacted. We can have a propaganda being coming into the environment based on this adversary AML. We can have an evasion sort of attack, and we can model the tampering also. So this is very important aspect and being looked up in the future how we are going to protect our AIML. So a lot of governments have come up with their own AIML algorithm strategies and security strategies in long time. All the big nations. We have also been working into this environment how to protect our AIML future, because this is going to be future and this will completely change the ecosystem of defender as well as the mm, attackers. So one of the strategies that we may work upon, and as a larger audience into this group, can be a good suggestion points if the nations have adopted any good uh, techniques or a policy initiative which can help it. One of the few that I understand can be, or we understand that we can provide into the environment, is that we have to provide a strategy to how to protect this adversarial AIML and the models to be protected so that the attack cannot be go further into the environment and cannot impact this uh, uh, the public in general and organization in particulars. We have to also emphasize that we have to loop in the human factor into this AI model, because these AI models are generating certain things. So we need a human experts along with these AI systems, which can hand in hand go and validate it also and contextualize it, because AML is mostly depending upon trained data sets. So we can also train this AI model based on our human expertise, so that if any error is coming into their output in whenever an application is being deployed into environment, so we can take the expertise of a software subject matter expert and we can tune that AIML model certain way that the output always be in a favor of an organization in a more productive way rather than being a destructive way, and that flaw must not be exploited by any other person. So we also need to have a proactive defense. like AI driven security. So we can make the AI stand against the AI. We can also utilize this AI system. We must have a strategy, and we must also provide that these all organizations which are coming up with the solutions of the security to all the global economic agencies must also, they are also working on this AI domain. So they must enhance this activity of their AI based solutions to counter this AI based attack methodologies. And that is way we can handle this AI sort of attack, and which is going to be complex. And we know that we have a session in subsequent days which where we will be having this how to protect this AI ML based attacks into environment. Is there any question on this part? I can take it. Otherwise, I can go ahead with the zero-day vulnerabilities and exploit chains. However, the automation also has, we see this these attacks, as I have spoken into my conversation, is that botnet for DDoS attacks. So this is how the automation activity using an AML can be enhanced, where we can exploit multiple bots, and then we initiate a DDoS attack from a single point of CNC or command and control center, and that can be completely automated, and we don't need to have been a army of people looking into DDoS, and we can generate an DDoS by having a botnet exploited by an AIML based exploit. As I mentioned, that ransomware as a service has really automated this ecosystem, and this is how we have seen the prominence and the coming up of ransomwares every now and then in the complete global environment, where health systems, economic bank systems, government public facing environment has been exploited by these. And this ecosystem of initial access brokers to complete exploitation chain is available to the market, hardly in few pennies. We have also seen sectors which have been impacted. So it's BFSI has been the most the banking systems are always the leaders in technology adoption into environment, and they have this economic bandwidth also to take this into the environment to the stakeholders. So we have seen that they've been particularly been targeted infrastructure. However, when we see in terms of from the users or endpoint user, it has been a web-based environment, and day in day out we do the internet banking. The denial of service of their environment have an economic impact, which can lead to a, various critical situations in case of any war or cyber conflict. It will escalate this gravity of that particular sector infrastructure also. So as a challenger, I speak that we have to scale up as a defender, because our traditional defenses may not be sufficient to hold out these sort of attacks, and the industry certainly is working hard on this, and they may come up with this solutions. However, as a part of a protective strategy, we need to we need to automate our detection and response systems. The faster these attacks comes, if we have an AI defender also, so the faster response it will be, having a very limited or less amount of disruption to a banking or any critical infrastructure in general. With the small, okay, am I screen visible to you?
No, sir. No, sir. Your screen is not visible.
Okay, let me.
Yes, sir. You can share it again if.
Is it visible now?
Yes, yes, yes. It is visible now.
So
Yeah.
in the you're welcome. I hope my previous slide was visible. Otherwise, this is what I was speaking about. This is all visible. Have you all seen this one? Have I spoken about all these things?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes. We had seen all
Great,
that.
great. So the next, you can say in this complete cyber threat ecosystem is the zero day vulnerabilities and the exploit chain that we have seen has impact the complete ecosystem of digital environment, where our traditional defenses systems has been bypassed and been exploited by these threat actors for the time they've been able to have this access of particular vulnerability. However, we all know that zero day is a basically a flaw or a vulnerability which is not known to the vendor and which is being exploited into the few past and backend, where until unless a behavioral sort of understanding or a researcher or the company has able to find that vulnerability into environment, but they don't have the time to patch this. So the exploitation happens in very rapid way, and this we have seen in the case of Log4 Shell in 2021, where once this information is available and there was no patch available for this Log4 Shell. So the threat actors has automated the complete zero day vulnerability and exploited into the wild. Complete scan of the global cyber system was taken where this Lockport shell was available, and they have exploited it and kept and make persistent in the systems, and then kept it for their future exploitations till the time the bug is available or any countermeasures or you can say as residual risk sort of practices come into the picture. This we have been a witness of this sort of zero day vulnerability. So traditional security systems, as we say, we have seen the zero day vulnerabilities being coming day in day out. We have multiple CVs coming into the environment, and so equally challenging is for these threat actors to map. However, we as a defender keep trying to catch up with this zero day vulnerabilities because the ecosystem of digital environment is huge. So any sort of weakness into one environment can be a hop point to get into a critical system. This is what our understanding, and this is what the threat actors also tries to do it. We have also witnessed in the case of solar wind attacks, where the malicious code was inserted into the software updates, and it has impacted not US government agencies but major corporations across the globe which are supplying, which are being doing business and working very closely into the domain of economic affairs, into the matter of public health and safety. In general, it is very much impacting transportations also. So this sort of attacks, zero day has very high value to the environment. Various industry leaders have initiated very zero day initiatives sort of things. They've been trying to grab the public-private partnership of activities where these zero-day vulnerabilities can be reported and can be patched and on time so that the exploitation cannot be continue in a very real world. We understand that part. If you see that this is zero-day vulnerabilities, if you go for the exploit chain, so there they go hand in hand. They have a synergy where an attacker use multiple combined vulnerabilities for a severe sort of a very major attack. So once they exploit a weaker vulnerability into the public facing environment or the environment which is easily accessible to them, and then move laterally, keeping exploitations of multiple supply chain of environment, and they keep coming with various they look into these zero day vulnerabilities. When you see the overall capabilities of the advanced persistent threats or the nation based threats, you you understand the capabilities they have into the environment. So they exploited this small environment back facing and then made a persistence. Mostly it has been observed in various incident response activities in India and across the globe is that the obsolete systems which are facing public environment, they've been exploited. even by the known vulnerabilities, even zero-day vulnerabilities into these obsolete environment, and then further movement of the threat actors into the environment. So this chain of exploitations happens into various stages of attacks. So they pass this layered security systems, which we sometimes feel a sense of security into environment. So the, till the time we are not able to find that we've been exploited, in the security parlance, it's been said that if there is a link available into the environment, then it is the will and the effort that the attacker wants to reach into that particular link is, we have to make it tough. But as we have seen that this AI based systems has created a much further bar for us, so that we be able to not create these defenses in such a way where we need an AI to defend these AI based attacks also. So this is where we want to have deeper system access. We can go privilege escalations, and we this data theft and system disruptions are two major impacts that we can understand, and we have seen into the environment where this exploit chain we has impacted the complete economic environment as well as public safety. And so as a part of if we see, so what can be a broader mitigation strategy for this sort of attack is we can say we can have an adaptive or proactive security stance. Like organizations should move beyond reactive defenses and embrace a proactive approach to cybersecurity, including continuous monitoring, vulnerability scanning, and penetration testing. So these three activities in totality will find out those gaps between these uh, circles. So the overlapping of these activities will certainly enlighten or give us a view of gaps into the environment. The industry as well as the defending environment has come up with a very good concept of a zero trust architecture. So where all users and devices are treated as untrusted and require continuous verification before accessing resources. In the banking systems where speed of response to a particular stakeholder is required, this zero trust uh, architectures and solutions have are been mature enough. But when you see counter to the environment where is near real time is in nanoseconds and microseconds below that, where it has a challenge in implementing this zero sort of architecture. However, for economic point of view of banking systems, we can see that this holds a very prominent. And what we seen in our environment has that our banking environment has embraced this zero trust architecture into their core business systems very effectively, and they have been able to defend and run this very huge financial networks of within the Indian ecosystem very uh, prominently. And it can be seen that as a regulator, as a government also, the suitable regulations and the guidance has been provided for the faster adoption of these technologies into the environment also. Various guidelines as part of our NCI IPC we have included into environment to deal this sort of risk. You can say one of the important aspect that as a defender, as an implementer, that we have seen is that segmentation is always helpful into this complete ecosystem, and without segmentations hardly we see any network. So this compartmentalization of network, further into an smaller subsections and isolated segments, will certainly impact this zero-day exploit sort of things. It will slow down their impact into environment where we can not able to uh, expose our critical networks by this segmentation to this sort of vulnerabilities. Then one of the important aspect is the collaboration in terms of sharing of the threat intel and the information sharing among the various stakeholders, like we as a banking sector amongst your organizational structures, you share this information as early as possible, because it's better to hide this information than to it's better to share this information rather than to hide it, pardon me, so that the environment got apprised. The regulator get apprised about this. We also national agencies which are supporting your ecosystem like the CERT, various critical information infrastructure agencies must be apprised of, so the ecosystem can be saved by these sort of challenges, and the industry also, so that they can come up with the solutions in a much faster and very significant way. We also, one of the prominent uh, solutions that as a defending point of view has the behavioral and anomaly detection solutions that has been deployed into the environment, which the signature based solutions are not able to handle these exploit chains of zero day vulnerabilities. By this behavioral analysis and this anomaly detections are able to certain ways help in protecting against these zero day vulnerabilities, and nonetheless with regular patching and updating and providing and countermeasures in terms of procedures. If that patching and updating not available to environment, we providing a residual sort of environment where we don't expose our once we understand there is a zero day exploit available into the environment, we must try to patch and update, or we try to put up a countermeasure in a procedural way to save our critical economic systems. So this is how, if you say that this threat landscape of zero day vulnerabilities are all intertwined, and which can be only be helpful as a point of cybersecurity experts, or as a part of economic uh, implementer into environment, that how you provide these all threats a broader overview to your management also, and your understanding also, so that in this complete mesh of interconnected networks we'll be able to defend our networks from threats coming from any sort of environment. And we must be very much aware about our environment also. Now, one of the major technological improvement or digitizations and the penetrations we have seen is this the Internet of Things coming into the environment, which we see that billions of devices, and which has lead from an IPv4 migrations to the IPv6, is this Internet of Things. And so the vulnerabilities has exponentially busted out of us, where these IoT devices been placed in and out from our home to our organizations to various critical infrastructure organizations from industries, and the adoption is very prominent in the Western environment as well as in our Indian economic systems, where these devices have been designed similar to the internet when we thought in 70s and earlier that it is more in terms of convenience. And these IoT devices has been same thing. They've been designed in terms of convenience, keeping security in a lesser stance, and they've been more in a very smaller firmware of environment. So having the security apparatus put into it is a very difficult task too, for the implementer, for designers, and for security people also. So this devices being vulnerable by inherent natures. However, at policy level, at global environment as well as the Indian ecosystems, this has been taken very seriously, and various standards of securities has been now put up into these IoT devices. But the way this has been proliferated across the globe, so any person sitting in any X small village of any X country can initiate an attack, which we have as an attacker has, which as a defender has a very difficult time to handle too, because these are available all across, and the attribution of it is really difficult, because we cannot attribute it to a particular nations. So many hops has been put up, so that the end result of identification of these IoT devices from where the attack has been launched is you can say is magically impossible to us, or any part of the global cybersecurity community is really difficult for identification of this sort of things and IoT devices, but they've been utilized. And maybe in sometimes legally, the way we function in this global environment, it is difficult to have this legal complexity above this. There is another complexity of this IoT vulnerabilities being exploited by the attacker. The key vulnerabilities that has been exploited, you can see, is the encryption cannot be implemented properly into these systems because they are very small firmware sort of things. So they've been put into a very least level of encryptions, and which can be which the threat actors has exploited and get into the complete ecosystems, or they use this as a way to launch an attack to a critical system. We have seen that they are being default weak credentials being put into back of a router. We have seen ROM 0 where the default passwords has been exploited at complete global level, and there is no automatic update procedures for these sort of devices. So for that, it is quite challenging, where we have seen our in IT and OT environment where there is a lack of patching and update available. Then the strongest of the cybersecurity solutions are not able to defend these sort of attacks. And when you see this billions of devices having this sort of non-automatic updates, and which the users are not aware about how to do it, it is really difficult to cope up with the environment. We have some sectors based on the open source. It has been clearly been attributed and mentioned that the Ukrainian power grid was attacked. The vulnerable medical devices has been attacked because these are healthcare is one of the prominent utilization of these IoT devices, because and in their environment it is hardly patched into the systems. So this is quite challenging to protect against this proliferated IoT devices. However, if we see that what are the world scenarios, we can see that the Mirai botnet, which is one of the Mirai botnet which is being utilized and which has been on these IoT devices, which the cameras, the routers has been compromised. And we have seen while we're doing the incident response into various environments that these routers or the cameras, apart from their default configuration files, has been exploited, putting the Mirai EXEs into this environment, and this been further infection into few more of these devices, and this complete botnet of this, which has been utilized in various distributed denial of service attacks and prominently been seen into the environment, and took down major devices like, you can say, Dynamic DNSS, and we have seen Twitter and Netflix being in the private industry being targeted by Mirai botnet. As I mentioned, that healthcare device security, certainly post 2020, you can see that as the people have more time to sit at their homes and been remotely working for that for the environments are also been okay with the connections coming from an unknown source, saying that it might be a official working from home. So in this case, a lot of healthcare devices has been exploited because they are unpatched. They into an environment where the primary responsibility is for the life to be saved, and the availability of devices need to be the primary objective, rather than being getting it shut down for update and patch and change of the weaker security credentials. So they've been exploited during that phase, and has come into prominence. Maybe we are working very hard in terms of regulations, guidance, frameworks, which must protect us from these sort of devices being used as a base to launch an attack on a critical infrastructure or critical information infrastructure particularly. And few of the strategies that can help as in uh, banking leaders in your nation is that we can go for certain guidelines which include that regular patching and vulnerability management, not from the view of any user, also in terms of the solution developers also, that they've been given certain support into the environment whenever they are providing these IoT devices. So their weaknesses may not be may not get exploited, and they should be addressed at the earliest. So the developers must come up with these patches and updates. So same thing what we have seen to mature our IT systems. These IoT devices must also go through same rigorous cycle of testing and putting in added layers of security by placing an ecosystem both in terms of development, deployment, implementation, that the vulnerabilities got patched at the regular interval at the fastest possible way, where one of the enabler can be an AI driven security solutions, where we can have a behavioral analysis, automations and response, where we can utilize this enhanced capability of AI solutions to, to deal with this massive ocean of IoT devices, and which will keep coming and being increasing in day by day from now on. Further, we must put as a regulator, as an industry, that or any part of contracts to our IoT device suppliers, that if your devices are coming with a default password, it must have the capabilities to reset it as per the user requirement. One of the SLA requirements that can be put into their clauses is that you must go away with default passwords with certain amount of encryption methodologies, which will help to secure the environment, keeping a wrap of further security apparatus among these IoT devices. And one of the weakness that we say that there is no automatic firmware updates. So they must be have the capability to have this automatic firmware updates from the genuine sources. Further, one of the important aspect that this devices and various security threats can be tackled is by giving a continuous education and awareness to the stakeholders which are running our environment, which are our employees, which are working in both IT and non-IT fields, which have been doing the operations also, being equally trained into a basic cybersecurity hygiene sort of things, and graduating into further cybersecurity warriors, which can help to prevent these critical economic systems to be safer in the hands of a complete secure digital ecosystems. We have also, as a part of strategy, provide a proactive threat detection systems where behavioral based AI based systems can be deployed, and proactive threat detections can be given to the SOC team as well as the indication to the NOC team, and in conditions that they will be able to respond to this sort of attacks in a very faster and a you can say in a prominent way. And with this, what I can conclude and what I understand, I can convey to you a message is that the threat landscape is really evolving very fast with AI and the automation and the IoT expanding the attack surface. So equally, to come up and to be a very safe environment, we must utilize these technologies to counter this similar counterproductive solutions. We can, as a part of, as I've suggested, in the zero day vulnerabilities and exploitation change, we must have a more collaborative approach. We must have more sharing across the globe, so that these threats can be easily been counter as a collective defenders of this globe against those threat actors which are pushing us to the limit. We must, as a cybersecurity expert, since this is a continuous adaptive process, we must remain vigilant and agile to protect ourselves from increasingly sophisticated. With this, I concluded my presentation, and I'm really happy to take any of the questions and or any discussions that we may initiate after this. Thank you very much for listening me patiently.
Thank you, sir. Now the participants could ask their questions or share their views. Any questions?
Do you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we hear you. Anastasia,
Hello,
yes.
Anastasia, Bank of Russia. Well, according to the presentation, AI is a real threat now. Yes, but in the presentation, you've said that we can mitigate threats with AI-driven solutions. So, my question is how to protect the AI security solution itself from all these surrounding threats. Do you have inside your organizations any recommendations or even requirements for applying AI in the solution inside your architecture, inside your security department framework? Thank you.
Yes. So it's a good, very, very good question, and I hope that uh, what you want to understand that since AI is being developed for providing solution to various aspects of digitization. However, it is been counterly being utilized by these threat actors. So we have seen this as an enabler to both the defenders and the offenders, both ways. However, as a part of strategy that I have discussed into is that the one of the simplest example is that you can have an AI based antivirus into the environment which has the capability of not the signatures or which can able to ingest the signatures of various threats coming into day out of across the globe. Maybe your cyber threat intelligence provider, maybe your ecosystems, maybe your government agencies are providing. So the way, the faster you are able to ingest this into the environment will give you a capability to counter these threats coming up. One of the more important example, which can go and more important for the security operation center sort of things. You can deploy logs are one of the key resources of an incident responder as well as an organizations. Where these devices are coming up, the logs, generation of the logs from these devices are humongous. They've been generated in TVs. And if you are looking in a base of an economic system or as a nation, then you are dealing with a massive data which is coming up. So where this AI ML solutions like the SOC providers or the SOC solutions that you are looking into, you can put as in strategy and as policy that these systems must have the capability to uh, automate, scale it, and to have adaptability to this sort of logs which have been generated by the devices into your environment, which are touching your core networks in a much faster way using this AI based ML solutions. These are two environment, two things that you can think of. However, for a longer strategic point of view, you have to put as a nation certain strategies as a baseline where like we as an agency in India, NCIPC, for the critical information of structures, we are propagating and promoting our stakeholders to look into this behavioral based of environment, though they are very much mature, but we have all sort of stakeholders down from these various critical sectors. Banking probably is the highest mature uh, sort of stakeholders. However, if you see in government where the lack of resources are there, and when where there are people not aware about it, having giving this understanding of AI ML based solutions into the environment is a challenging task. However, it requires resources also. But as the systems will grow, we understand that the AML based systems will be part of our digital ecosystems altogether in the coming years. This is what my perception in terms of AI is. I hope I am able to address your question.
Thank you very much. So let me put my question in another way. Do you have any requirements, governmental or some financial market requirements for implementing AI solution inside organization? Some particular issues?
Yes, certainly. We as in cybersecurity agency for the critical information structures, we have been consultation with our stakeholders as well as with our regulators and government. We've been promoting and we are trying to put up a framework in totality, which must include this AI/ML based solutions or AI/ML based defending solutions to be part of their overall strategic discussions and directions. However, the talks are in terms of government, where they will be bringing this AI/ML based strategy as well as AI/ML based solutions to this complete ecosystem.
Yeah. There's a question by Grigory. Which type of attack you detected more often than other in last month in financial sphere?
Could you please come up once again?
Which type of attack you detected more often than others in the financial sphere?
Oh, so if you see, so phishing undoubtedly is in case of phishing domains. The banking sector is the uh, industry leader, you can say, because there the economic is involved. So you keep coming with these domains where stakeholders uh, been targeted for financial benefits. So they're phishing domains, lookalike domains, and malicious domains keep coming in the prominent way, and they've been trying to target for financial benefits. If you see in terms of their core systems, so the core systems are much more protected, saying the regulations, the environment that we put up in an Indian ecosystems. So that is very difficult to bypass. However, in public, you can easily say that phishing domains being the prominent threat vectors for these sort of financial institutions.
There's another question by Ashwini. Sir, are there any specific guidelines from NCIIPC for BFSI sector related to Internet of Things patching, etc.?
Oh, so as general guidelines, we have given in our 2015 and recent guidance also that what should be the patching and environment, how can it be if it is not available, what can be a residual risk or procedures that can be put into the environment. So that we have given. However, the specific I don't remember right now, but certainly if it is there, I will share with the environment.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Any more questions? No more questions? If there are no more questions, we can. Yeah. Shall we all close if there are no questions?
Yes, madam, we can close. And if there are any other questions, people can give us in mail and we can reply.
Right,
later.
madam.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir, and thank you all participants for joining this webinar. We'll meet again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.